What is real? Is Kamala Harris real? Is the Democratic nominee for president a phony? Is the economy real? Is the Olympic male, female boxer story real? I can't trust anything. Nothing seems real. 2, stories from Hawaii. I read something new. I did something new. I saw something new. I was renewed. Stories from vacation. Stories from Hawaii. 3, does Joe Biden belong on Mount Rushmore? We have that conversation with Tyrus. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com and on the Fox News YouTube channel, the Fox News Facebook page, and always on demand, wherever you get your audio entertainment, at Apple or on Spotify. Just hit subscribe, and you can listen to us market to market, terrestrial radio across this great nation. If you ever want to hang out with the Will Cain Show live, just head over to YouTube and hit subscribe, and you can hang out with us every day, 12 o'clock Eastern Time. As we sit today, Vice President Kamala Harris has been called back. She's participating somehow in the Situation Room, as there appears to be news that at any moment there could be a retaliatory strike from Iran on the nation of Israel. The world looks to again be spiraling into a war that sits upon a mountain of matchsticks, dynamite. It could metastasize into nuclear conflict. From Ukraine and Russia to Israel and Hamas to Israel and Iran, seems to be only a matter of time before we hear also including Taiwan and China. The world sits ready to explode. Also, the news of the day is that the Dow Jones Industrial Average has plummeted. I believe it's the lowest single day in a couple of years. It is down 3% today. This on the heels of a crash in the stock market in Japan on Friday that has only continued today. The Japanese stock market down something like 12%. The U.S. economy also seemingly sitting on a mountain of matchsticks ready to ignite. You know, for what it's worth, the Federal Reserve is set to meet again in September. This recessionary crash in the stock market comes on the heels, by the way, of a bad jobs report last week that sent unemployment up to 4.3%. It's not unreasonable to think that the Fed would cut interest rates in response to A, rising unemployment, B, a bad economy for the Biden-Harris ticket, C, to stick it to Trump, D, to literally attempt to save the economy. But what's fascinating is if the Fed does cut rates in September, every recession over the past 3 decades, 90, 91, 2000, 2001, 07, 08, every recession has followed a cut in the federal funds rate. And that's in part because high interest rates are lagging, recessionary environments are baked in. The Fed doesn't cut rates in good environments. It does so in bad environments. But if we're looking for the future, if we're looking to see what could happen, if we're trying to predict a recession, wait until the Fed cuts rates in September. And then wait until, say, after a small rally, October. I'm no financial expert. I'm no financial Nostradamus. But I can read the past. I can read a chart. And I will tell you, having just returned from vacation, week and a half out of the news cycle, most of the news cycle was drinking from a water hose in the 2 weeks before I went on vacation. Attempted assassination of Donald Trump, Joe Biden forced from the ticket, Kamala Harris placed, not elected, placed in order to save democracy at the top of the ticket. It slowed down a bit for the last week and a half, but still, you know, when you were a kid, you needed a drink of water. You went to the water hose back in the old days. We all sipped water out of a green garden hose. You've heard the saying, it's like drinking water out of a fire hose. You know, you just can't keep up. That's what the news cycle has felt like over the last couple of weeks. And yet still, despite all of that, we know we've got 3 months until an election. You know, we've got the October surprise. We've got something coming. And by the way, with the new Fox News poll showing that Something like 30 to 40% of Americans consider the economy their top issue. It's roughly double the second biggest issue, which would be a tie for something like 15% between immigration and abortion. With the economy being the overwhelming number one biggest issue, if we're looking for that October surprise, if we're looking that shoe to drop, that hammer to drop that affects an election, you might consider today as a little precursor. World sitting on top of world wars and an economy that, if we're reading the charts from the past, could fall into a recession well before November. But we are here today with you back from vacation. It is renewed. This is all new. Check this out. Brand new studio here for the Will Cain Show. Beautiful environment in the home studio here at our headquarters in Dallas, Texas. I'm excited to be hanging out with the boys. I got two-a-days and young establishment James. I've got tinfoil Pat. Yeah. And I'm just panning around my studio in Dallas, showing the environment. You like that, boys? You like that?
Sick.
Oh, yeah.
Heck yeah.
Look at that. I got all the things, all the places. I'm working on it. I got new flags coming in.
That's awesome.
I got a little Texas Longhorns and Pepperdine University pennants coming in. But can you guys name? I'm surrounded by flags from places that I love. That's what I'm surrounded by.
Yeah.
I mean, can you guys name that flag right there? We did a little flag quiz here on the Will Cain Show.
Montana?
But there's a flag on a red field, blue circle, 3 stars. You guys know that one, right?
That's Tennessee.
Tennessee.
I didn't know that.
Young establishment James, can you do this one?
Puerto
It's
Rico.
like the Mexican flag with the numbers 1824 in the white field.
That's something to do with
Tinfoil
the
Pat
war?
says Puerto Rico.
No,
That
it's not
is
Texas
the
flag.
original flag of the Republic of Texas.
I did not know
That is when they fought the Battle of the Alamo. They were fighting not for independence. They were fighting for the establishment, the reestablishment of the Mexican Constitution of 1824. So they flew that flag before eventually adopting a series of flags that culminated in the Lone Star. It's good to be back. I feel new. Like I said, I read something new. I did something new. We got a new studio here in Dallas, Texas. We got you guys back. We had some wonderful guest hosts here on the Will Cain Show. And there's something else new, boys. There's something else new. Today, we are launching in our biggest radio market yet. And it happens to be the one when I got into the car when I was a kid, listening to my mom put on the radio. I remember listening to it in the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2000s, and here we are in 2024, and the Will Cain Show is launched on KRLD 1080 in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
Blowing and growing, and in our home market, the biggest station yet. And every week, we are adding new stations here to the Will Cain Show, in addition to the audience that's hanging out with us on Facebook. One of our guest hosts last week, Kennedy, drew millions on Facebook for one of the big episodes. And growing as well on YouTube. Last week, I was a guest on the Stephen A. Smith Show, also broadcasting on YouTube. You should go see that. That was while I was on vacation in Hawaii. Jumped in from the Aloha State and had a nice conversation about whether or not Kamala Harris is a DEI hire and whether or not that's wrong, whether or not that's racist to point out. That's on the Stephen A. Smith Show as well on YouTube. But for now, I ask you this. While we're renewing everything, and the world is sitting on potential world war, and the economy is suggesting that we might just see, at least in the next month or two, a recession. Who in their right mind, seriously, I ask this, past all partisanship, just trying to deal in the realm of common sense, who in their right mind says, yeah, 4 more years? Let's get into what's real and what you can trust, what's fake, what's phony, with story number 1. There is a line in my favorite movie. It stood the test of time, and it remains on my Mount Rushmore. It's something like 25 years old, and yet I still reserve a place for the Big Lebowski. And there remains a line in that movie that I think explains a lot. It explains some of your personal relationships. It explains how we can look at the national news cycle. We can explain human behavior. And it's a moment when the dude, Jeff Lebowski, is sitting in his car along with Walter Sobchak, the dude played by Jeff Bridges, Walter Sobchak, played by John Goodman. And John Goodman is repeatedly saying to the dude, am I wrong? Am I wrong? Walter, am I wrong? And the dude says, well, here, listen for yourself.
You're not wrong, Walter. You're just an ass.
It's absolutely one of my favorite lines in philosophy. Forget movies. It's one of my favorite lines in philosophy. You're not wrong, Walter. You're just an a-hole. By the way, on the topic of the Big Lebowski retaining a position, standing the test of time on my Mount Rushmore, did you guys back in New York, did you see Nancy Pelosi on CBS Sunday Morning? She has offered up an addition to the real Mount Rushmore. Of course, Mount Rushmore. 4 famous presidents, but she's ready for a 5th. I think she's ready for a 5th. Can't tell if she's erasing one of the presidents, but she's ready to add a 5th to Mount Rushmore. I need you to listen to Nancy Pelosi from CBS Sunday Morning.
Such a consequential president of the United States, a Mount Rushmore kind of president of the United States. Want to know what comes next.
That he belongs up there on Mount Rushmore. Lincoln and Joe Biden.
But you got Teddy Roosevelt up there, and he's wonderful. I don't say take him down, but you can add Biden.
There you go. By the way, boys, in New York, did Teddy Roosevelt just get canceled?
I think so.
Did she just? I mean, Nancy Pelosi always seems to be 2 Chardonnays into a conversation. But that right there, is hard to keep up with. I'm not positive, but I think she canceled Teddy Roosevelt off of Mount Rushmore. I don't think she was taking it to 5. I think she was replacing Roosevelt with Biden.
Yeah, she kind of just disqualified him, and she didn't really give a reason. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that would say, oh, Teddy's not cool now.
It's a wild, fascinating move.
No, well, Leslie Stahl goes, Lincoln, Biden, and her first thought, I'm not kicking off Lincoln, but Teddy's up there. And then she catches herself and goes, well, and I'm not trying to take off Teddy either, but we add Biden. So get to work. Get to work. The unemployment rate is up to 4%. So like in a FDR-style TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, a Work Projects Administration, we need to send some federal workers out there to the mountain to carve in Joe Biden.
Oh, man. I saw a good picture on Twitter that would have had the hypothetical, and it had Biden on the Mount Rushmore with that lost gazing eyes looked. Actually, I thought it looked pretty good, but I don't know.
Mouth agape on Mount Rushmore, confused Joe Biden. Also of note, I think in that clip did you notice Nancy Pelosi says he's one of the most consequential presidents of our time? This I find fascinating. Okay. I agree. Joe Biden is one of the most consequential presidents of our time. He is consequential in that he's ushered in perhaps one of the worst economies. He has set the world on the brink of potential multiple World War fronts. He's hid, along with his administration, the mental senility of a president. He has no doubt he's consequential, but what I found more interesting about Nancy Pelosi choosing that adjective is that it's the latest in the viral sheep bleat that comes from the left. And I don't want to be overly partisan. Does this happen on the right? I ask you listening. I ask you on social media. I ask you on YouTube. I ask you this on radio. What is the verbal viral tick of the right? Because it happens in I would say, I'm going to give it 60-day, 45-day cycles for the left. Consequential became, some type of virus, diarrhea or vomit. It became the repetitive word that infected the left. They all were saying Joe Biden is consequential. He's not great until now, until he's made his way to Mount Rushmore. He's not the best. He's consequential. The comparison, I think, is to Washington, who declined to become king. So Joe Biden being forced out of the race. makes him consequential. Consequential only lasted until the left decided and got infected with weird. They started calling J.D. Vance and Donald Trump weird. I've told you guys this in the past. I am on a lot of emails, and I guess one could say I'm inside the media, whatever that means, although I don't check my Fox News email account. So maybe I'm missing the talking points memos. They're not getting sent to my Gmail. Literally have never checked my Fox email address. I could be getting emails from Rupert Murdoch. I would not know because I don't know the password to my Fox email address. I'd like to believe Rupert can find me on text or through Gmail. But if there's some kind of talking point going out, and it's hermetically sealed within the left that we're all going to say X, we're all going to repeat it Y times, they're doing a great job of keeping that within the family. I just truly think it's not a talking point. I think it's viral. It's verbal viruses. It's groupthink sheep. They literally start repeating pandemic of the unvaccinated. 2 feet bad, 4 feet good. Weird. Consequential president. And there's Nancy Pelosi saying consequential president again. If there is one on the right, because I don't want to be overly partisan, and I always strive for self-awareness. So let's take a look into the mirror. If there is that kind of vocabulary virus on the right, please point it out to me. Please drop into the comments section on YouTube. Hit me up on X at Will Cain. Instagram, see Will Cain. Will Cain Show on all those platforms. What is the verbal virus of the right? But even one more thing on Nancy Pelosi's just stunning 25 seconds of television on CBS Sunday Morning. She stabbed him in the back. She's Brutus. This is Brutus wiping the blood off of his knife and going, Caesar, what a great Roman. She is the one that forced him out. And she tries to play some slippery language of, well, I never made one call. I never made one call. And he knows that. I love him, Joe Biden. Well, so what if you never made one call? I watch Veep. Did you have your staffers make the call and then hand the phone to you? Did you send a text? Did you send an email? Did you receive calls? Did Leslie Stahl ask any of those follow-up questions? Or did she get away with, I never made one call? I mean, this is the standard by which Teddy Roosevelt just got dynamited off of Mount Rushmore. But Mount Rushmore, the Big Lebowski, you're not wrong, Walter. You're just an a-hole. As I sat on vacation for the past 2 weeks, week and a half, one of the things you realize is that much of the conversation in politics is right. Much of it, though, makes many of us an a-hole. And very little of it feels real. It all feels phony. Let's start with Kamala Harris. One of the conversations that came up over the past week and a half is whether or not Kamala Harris is black or whether or not Kamala Harris is Indian, whether or not she plays race to her advantage. It is true that Kamala Harris has been celebrated as the first great Indian American politician in the United States. It is also true that Kamala Harris went to Howard, a historically black college. It is undoubtedly true that Kamala Harris is mixed race, and she can be celebrated, if you're into identity politics, as an Indian American and as a black American. Donald Trump, speaking at the NABJ conference, the National Association of Black Journalists conference, got into it. I think the ABC reporter who questioned Donald Trump and started with, tell me how you're not racist, is beyond the pale. I have experienced that. I have. Like, remember, I worked at ESPN for 5 years. Before that, I was at CNN. I'll never forget. I got so frustrated, literally. And if we're being real, this is where the relationship went south. I got so frustrated appearing on Don Lemon's show every Sunday night, starting with the premise of, tell me how you and Republicans aren't racist. And this was back in the days of when they were making Mitt Romney out to be a member of the Ku Klux Klan. And now, of course, Mitt Romney is going to, according to the left, sit next to Joe Biden on Mount Rushmore for the 6th spot, break out more dynamite. But back then, they were busy in the project of convincing America that Mitt Romney was the grand wizard. I just got so tired with that being the presumption, the beginning. Tell us how you're not racist. And that's exactly what was done at that NABJ conference by, I think her name is Rachel Scott from ABC. Here, listen to this totally disingenuous, incurious, and malintentioned question you can imagine for a guest that shows up to your conference.
You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabbit to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country.
Forget whether or not that question is rude. That question is incurious. That question is not a open question designed to arrive at an answer. It is an indictment and a conclusion designed to manipulate the audience. But there sits Donald Trump. Where is Kamala Harris? Where is Kamala Harris? Why isn't she at the NABJ conference? For that matter, the person who's now been the presumptive Democratic nominee for president for 2 weeks hasn't given a single interview. So where is Kamala Harris? But I think it's dumb to indulge in, is Kamala Harris black? Is Kamala Harris Indian? Which is something that Trump brought up at that conference, the NABJ, and has been repeated now for many on the right. But it's not because they're wrong. It's because they come off as an a-hole. What I'm saying here is take the lesson of the Big Lebowski. When you step back from the bubble, when you stop talking to other people who always agree with you, when you stop living on social media, you start to see how real people live. This is where vacation is valuable. You got to see how real people think, and it's just a massive turnoff. But again, it's not wrong. See, the question isn't, is Kamala Harris black or Indian? The question is Kamala Harris a phony? Is she fake? And that, the answer seems to be yes. Here are some better examples. How about switching your accent in front of every audience you appear? Kamala Harris last week spoke in front of a black audience, and she all of a sudden slipped into a black accent. That's not my estimation. That's a fact. And that led to headlines like this from the Associated Press. Analysis. Donald Trump questioning Kamala Harris's race shows he doesn't understand code switching. Code switching. Changing your voice and accent to suit your audience. I thought Fisher King on X said this well. He said, no, Donald Trump doesn't understand code switching. He wears the same style suit and tie, talks the same to everyone, doesn't patronize them, which is a show of respect. Code switching is just a fancy term for being a phony and a liar, changing yourself because you look down on others. Most famous code switcher, Hillary Clinton. How about Joe Biden? They're going to put y'all back in chains. If I'm being real, guys in New York, let me ask you this. If I'm being real, do I ever code switch? Like, I pride myself on being authentic. I truly do, being real. And this is a process of that, okay? I'm using you as my mirror. I just got back from Hawaii. I'm going to tell you more about it in just a moment. I hung out with some of the people that I've grown close to over the past year, who we've worked together on projects to rebuild Lahaina. We've distributed funds. And all of a sudden I asked myself, Will, are you doing a Hawaii accent? Are you doing a little pigeon? And so, I don't know. Do I code switch?
I don't think so. Sometimes I think maybe like everyone, they do a little mirroring, but nothing code switching. You know what I mean?
Sometimes the Texas accent comes out a little stronger.
Yeah.
Well, I have an adaptable accent. I mean, I know this. I live in New York for 15 years, and people are like, where's your Texas accent?
Yeah.
I moved back to Texas for 3 years, and everybody's like, what's up, redneck? So, I know that it's fluid.
I actually
don't know
thought
that I'm consciously code switching.
I thought it came out more during your Stephen A. Smith interview, and maybe that was kind of like a relic of going back to the first take days.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think
Was he
that's a
doing a
place
black
where it
accent?
would. No, a Texas accent.
Was I code switching with Stephen A. Smith?
Breaking news.
I do think code switching, at least consciously, is a sign of phoniness. I certainly don't want to be phony. What I want to be is authentic. So I want to make that. I want to look in that long mirror. I want to make that analysis of myself. But Kamala Harris, it's a very legitimate question. Is she being phony? Is she being whoever you need her to be in that moment? I think that's just happening so much, and it's not really just among politicians and public figures. It's happening. I'm increasingly skeptical of everything I'm getting information-wise on the internet. Let me say another bit of phoniness I'm playing to the audience. I didn't like the Olympic boxer story, and I didn't like it literally from every angle. And watching that from afar, anyone who's ever listened to the Will Cain Show for quite some time knows how passionately and dedicated I am to the idea that there should not be women in men's sports or men in women's sports, that trans is a social contagion. That I will not use, and I'm not trying to be Walter Sobchak. I'm not trying to be an a-hole, but I will not use someone's preferred pronouns because I don't think I should change objective reality to fit someone else's subjective reality in pursuit of being well-liked. I think I have to live in reality. But this story of Amani Khalifi out of it's Algeria, the boxer who, defeated the Italian boxer, it just wasn't done. I'm telling you, I don't think it was done in goodwill. I don't think it was done to enlighten you. And that's from every side. I watched NBC's coverage of it, okay? I watched NBC's coverage of this story, right? The allegation is it's a man from Algeria who's beating up women in boxing, right? And it's been allowed by the IOC. Well, I watched 3 minutes of coverage from NBC, and I knew nothing at the end of it. Like, they're just running terrified. They're terrified of the story. They gave me this policy, that policy, but at the end, I have no idea whether or not the Algerian boxer is male or female. None. And that's not journalism. I don't know what that is. That's a tail between your leg spew of word salad. But then those on the, I believe this. There's those on the right to try to conflate it with a trans issue. It's just not a trans story. It's not. It's not about someone choosing their gender identity. It's, from the beginning of this debate about trans, there has been a very small slice of this conversation. It is a very small slice statistically of people who legitimately and biologically were like, are they male or are they female? They call it intersex. In the old days, they would say androgynous or hermaphrodite. I mean, it's a medical condition. You can be born, with it's not clear. It's not even, I don't think it's legal to do trans in Algeria. It's just not, that's not what the story was. And there's been some cop-out, I believe, on the right in the end to be like, it's not about whether or not it's trans. It's that men shouldn't be fighting women. And on that, I agree. And that's where it's back to this conversation. Like, don't play to the audience. In the beginning, all the trans stuff, it's like it's played to the audience, but didn't enlighten any of us. Here's some enlightenment. Here's what I find. Here's the information I would have wanted to hear. Ross Tucker is a guy that's been involved in these debates. Because this has happened before. There was a South African runner named Caster Semenya. Is she female? Is she too male? It happens. And I found this information fascinating. One, the boxer is not trans. Two, the IBA says that she, I'm going to use the pronoun she, because I don't believe this is a trans issue. I'm trying to achieve objective reality. The IBA says she failed eligibility to compete as a female. We do not know the test specifics. So the IBA ran tests, and this fighter came back with XY chromosomes. We all know XY is, at least primarily, overwhelmingly associated with men, XX, female. But then they do an analysis of whether or not the XY chromosome is accompanied by competitive advantages. And there's like testosterone testing and what they call DSD, androgen advantage. It's not just having high testosterone. So you could be a female XX with high testosterone. You wouldn't be barred. But if you have XY plus this other stuff, you will be barred because you have XY, which overwhelmingly suggests male, and you have the competitive advantages, which have also been separately tested that go along with XY. So there's been suggestions you just go back to the mouth swab. You test XX, XY. It's a screen. If you come up XY, then you test for higher testosterone. Then you test for androgen, all these other advantages. And if you have those, you can't compete as a female. The IOC didn't run any of this, so this boxer got to compete as a female. Now, here's the Walter Sobchak test, the Big Lebowski test. I don't think this person should have been fighting against females. And I don't think this person is a complete victim either. Like, if you have these advantages and you are XY, even if your parents, even if you have this condition, it doesn't mean that your condition becomes everyone else's problem. We can have empathy, but we don't have to have no backbone. Our empathy doesn't require us to devoid ourselves from our principles. Men shouldn't hit women. And if you have, according to the tests, over-indexed to man, don't get in the ring with women. And IOC, do your job. Don't put this fighter in the ring with women. But it's not a trans issue. It's not the American culture war issue, which is a legit war. But it is true. In the end, it's a man in the ring with a woman. We just don't need to play to our audience and getting high fives on our way to winning the culture war debate, which should be easily winnable anyway when it comes to trans and men participating in women's sports. But back to everything being fake and nothing being real. And finally, what is phony? The biggest point on Kamala Harris isn't her race. It's not even her code switching. It is her policies. That's what's phony, okay? That's what you have to understand about Kamala Harris. She's anti-fracking, now she's pro-fracking, open to fracking. She's Green New Deal, now she understands that'll lose her election, so maybe she needs to be a little more pro-oil and gas. She's hard on crime when it comes to marijuana. She's soft on crime when it comes to serious crimes. She's anti-marijuana. Next thing you know, she's on the Breakfast Club saying, hey, my family's from Jamaica. What, of course, you think I know about marijuana. Seemingly acting like it's cool. She's all in on marijuana. She was the furthest left voting senator in the United States Senate. And now, with no pressure from the press, no need to answer questions, no press conference, no big speech delivering her policy and her principles for 2 running weeks, Kamala Harris will try to sell herself as a moderate as she sits on top of a cratering economy she helped build that from day one was called the Biden-Harris ticket. And the world is devolving into world wars. And for that, we need to ask, phony or real? Regardless, not 4 more years. Reset, renewal, story from vacation. Next on The Will Cain Show.
I'm Dana Perino, and this is Perino on Politics.
Dana Perino, co-host of The Five and co-anchor of America's Newsroom, returns to Fox News Audio with a brand new podcast, Perino on Politics. Listeners of Everything Will Be Okay will be thrilled by the return of a familiar voice, but with a fresh spin as Dana guides audiences through the 2024 election cycle. Make sure you subscribe to this series wherever you download podcasts and leave a rating and review.
Did you hear the news? Now you can. With instant updates from Fox News for Amazon Alexa. Breaking stories and top headlines, the economy, and so much more. Brought to you by Fox News, America's #1 cable news network. Plus, setup couldn't be easier because everything's ready to go in the app. Just say,
Alexa, play news from Fox.
In Fox News.
it's the latest when you need it, on demand from Fox News and Amazon Alexa.
It's time to take the quiz. 5 questions, 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week.
History, pop culture, science, sports, civics. How much do you know? Let's find out.
Who was the first person to walk on the moon?
Jackson or something?
Neil Armstrong.
Take the quiz every weekday at thequiz.fox and then listen to the quiz podcast to find out how you did.
Play, share, and of course, listen to The Quiz right now at thequiz.fox.
Do something new. Read something new. See something new. Lessons from vacation. Lessons from Hawaii. It is the Will Cain Show. Coast to coast, market to market. Today, launching at KRLD in Dallas, Texas. Always live on YouTube and on Facebook. Hit subscribe on YouTube and you can hang out with the Will Cain Show in video every day, or subscribe on Apple or Spotify. Paul McGinnis says on YouTube, that vacay was way too long, Willie Cain. I agree. I missed you, Paul. I'm back. Dan Dunlap says, yes, definitely put one of the lowest rated presidents ever on Mount Rushmore. Dan, a few months ago here on the Will Cain Show, we did our worst presidents in American history. We essentially created our Mount Rushmore of worst presidents. And I can't remember exactly where Joe Biden came in, but I do believe he made the top 4. In my estimation, the Mount Rushmore of worst presidents in America. Woodrow Wilson, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Lyndon Baines Johnson, and Joe Biden. Denise Ms. Biete says, "Hi, Will. I like your new digs." Denise, I'm loving the new digs. I've got a little more room to hang out with you, a little more personality, and it's going to grow in the coming weeks. I figure out all the bells and whistles of this studio, and I can bring perhaps you, the listener, the viewer, into the show, put you up on the screen. Might be one of my goals, bring you in, bring up some of the tweets, bring up some of the videos that we can watch together right here on the big board surrounding me here in the studios of the Will Cain Show. The vacation was too long, as mentioned by Paul McGinnis on YouTube, but it did the trick. It did the trick. I once told you that one of my friends said, when you go on vacation, and this might have been of something he learned, I think, reading or quoting William F. Buckley, the founder of National Review, you should do something new, read something new, and see something new. I do think I satisfied that. And by the way, I think that is a testament to a good vacation. You come back renewed. So I want to share with you some of what I did. I'll bring you guys in New York into this conversation. So first of all, guys, and this is going to be the part where everybody listening and watching groans, and says, "Oh my God, Will, this is not fun talk. This is not vacation." But you guys know at the end of this week, Saturday morning, I am swimming in the New York City SEAL Swim. I am doing it for the second year in a row. I'm doing it with my brother. 3 miles. New Jersey's Liberty State Park to the Statue of Liberty. 100 push-ups, 22 pull-ups. Then to Ellis Island. 100 push-ups, 22 pull-ups. Then to Ground Zero on Manhattan. 100 push-ups, 22 pull-ups. Running through downtown Manhattan with American flags and about 200 some odd, firefighters, first responders, fire trucks lining the streets, and I'd say 60 Navy SEALs, former Navy SEAls. It is literally hair-raising, goosebump-inducing. And I'm doing it once again, but I have to be on TV with my shirt off. So a big part of my vacation was diet. And
I love it.
I have been a little bit obsessed about my diet in the past 2 months. And I found something, guys. It's working a little bit. And I'm enjoying it. Okay? I'm in my late 40s, right? And I think I'm just figuring this out. All this different types of diet. It actually gets really simple, and this is what made sense to me. And I'm having a good time with it. For the first 40-something years of my life, I just paid no attention to what I put in my mouth. And what I mean by that is I told myself, eat healthy. Hold on, there's no way you're eating right, young James. Just before you laugh, hold on. There's no way you're eating right.
I know.
Because you get away with it for a long time. That's the point.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you say, well, I need to eat healthy. Well, what that meant to me is don't eat unhealthy. So don't eat the fried chicken, don't eat dessert. But what I've been doing is really simple. I'm trying to be at a caloric deficit every day, and I'm trying to get as much protein every day. And that's like a math thing. That's like every day I have to play this math game that's kind of fun. So in order to I'm trying to get 170 grams to 200 grams of protein every day, right? That's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's a lot. And it would accompany a lot of calories, which would put you into calorie surplus. And I'm working out, I'm not doing a lot of cardio, I'm lifting, I'm doing a little cardio on vacation. But in order to be at a caloric deficit, let's say I want to be under 2,200 calories, right? But I want that 200 grams of protein. Man, that's tough. That's how do you do it?
Chicken breast.
It's all about macros too. So it's fat, carbs, and protein. So it's a balance between those calories you have of percentages of those 3 things. So you have to balance the carb intake, protein, fat.
Are you using
And here's the thing. Yeah, I'm using MyFitnessPal. And here's the thing. It's not like you can't eat that. Like, it's not like don't eat the cookie. You can eat the cookie, but you're going to take down a ton of calories, and you're not going to get the protein you need, so you're going to kind of fail on your daily experiment. And I like that. It's less like, here's the rules and don't violate the rules. It's more like, figure out the math every day. And James, you brought up chicken. I'm becoming a believer. Chicken might be the ultimate superfood. What I mean by that is it has got the highest protein. Like pork doesn't get there. Even beef. You're like, oh, beef. You know what? Beef doesn't have quite the protein count that chicken does, and it certainly has way more caloric count. So, like, chicken has the highest protein for lowest calorie every meal that you can get. You know what else is blowing my mind that I mean a lot of? Cottage cheese. Like,
I can't do
I
it.
had basically cut it. I like it.
Oh,
you don't
it's
think
so
it tastes
good.
good, Dan?
No, I do Greek yogurt instead of
It's
that
so
to get the
good.
protein. I know why you do that. But I just can't do the cottage cheese. It's gross.
I do both. Greek yogurt for breakfast. And I'm loving cottage cheese like with fruit. I think it's almost sweet. I like it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a big part of the vacation, honestly. Now, I will say alcohol, I didn't count the alcohol every day. So I don't know.
That's the
I didn't go
toughest
into
part.
the app and I didn't put in Mai Tai
I
times
thought
3.
I thought you were going to say you were going to go for a tan was the biggest thing, not diet with your shirt off.
What do you think about my tan?
It looks good.
It could just be the tan.
Yeah.
Not the diet.
Because you can look like whatever you want. As long as you have a good tan, you're good to go.
A tan loses 10 pounds.
It's so true.
Is it 10? We should come up with the number.
Yeah.
What does a
Yeah.
tan do?
Yeah.
Is it 10 pounds?
Matthew
does it-
McConaughey says 10.
And what does it add to your attractiveness scale on a 1 to 10?
1 to 2.
What? Well, I don't know what. So, like, you
So if
think it
you're a
makes a 6 and 8?
Yeah, if you're like a 5, are you a 7 with a tan?
That sounds about right. I'd say it's a 10 to 20% bump.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
Agreed.
Yeah.
There was a there was a summer I had lifeguarded the entire time, and I had left school a little overweight and came back to swimming and tan every day, and probably lost 20 pounds and was tan. And a friend was like, "Oh, you went up 2 points."
There you go.
Yeah, I believe it. All right. Not only did I do something new in terms of focus on my diet, by the way, a lot of movement, a lot of pickleball. For the first year, I did not smoke the 70-year-olds. I took a lot of pride the last couple of summers in just dominating the 70-year-olds on the pickleball court. Not this year. They got the better of me. I don't know. Something's really gone down in my pickleball game. I swam in the ocean to get ready for this Navy SEAL swim. And I'll say, I don't know if I'm getting frail, in my age, but like between my frailty on the pickleball court and my fears in the ocean, I did a lot of shark thinking. A lot. I normally am pretty good about putting that out of my mind, but I don't know. There was a lot of tiger shark thoughts. There was a lot of when was the last attack in this area thought. And I don't know. I didn't like it. Not one bit. Not the sharks.
Dun, 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 dun.
Agreed.
Dun, 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 dun.
Do you know the test? Do you know the test if you're in an area that might have sharks?
What?
Have you guys ever heard the test?
No.
You taste the water.
What?
Taste the water.
What does it taste like?
If you taste the water, you have a good idea of whether or not there's sharks.
What are you tasting for?
Yeah.
Salty, if it tastes salty.
Interesting.
Could be the heat too. Like Long Island Sound is salty, but there's no sharks in there.
We'll leave it at that.
It took you a minute. Everybody doesn't get it. If it's salt water, there are sharks.
Yep.
If it tastes salty, there are sharks.
You got me.
I read something new. The book I just finished. I've finished some Michael Crichton, James Patterson Candy, but I also read Wide, Wide Sea by Hampton Sides. It's about Captain James Cook and his third voyage in which he discovered Hawaii, and he went up looking for the Northwest Passage. And it's the third book I've read by Hampton Sides. I read Blood and Thunder about Kit Carson, and I read Kingdom of Ice about the first American exploration of the North Pole. And you guys know I love this stuff. I love like frontiersmen, adventures, explore. I love a time when the world still had mystery and brave men literally sailed off into the horizon to explore the unknown. And I understand the unknown, right? But we are talking about from the perspective of Western civilization. Why? Because we are Western civilization. And although Cook didn't, quote unquote, discover Hawaii because there was already Hawaiians, just think, and by the way, great respect for the Hawaiians that literally canoed from Tahiti thousands of miles north because they heard about some islands through oral history up into the, north of the equator. But Cook and those guys, who ultimately was killed on the big island of Hawaii, I don't know, man. That's when men were men. I love those stories. And I like these Hampton Sides books, but there's something about me. Here's the book I'm reading right now, Killing JFK by Bill O'Reilly and Martin Dugard. And the reason I'm reading it is a friend of mine said, have you read any Bill O'Reilly books? I'm like, no. And a lot of people have kind of said that. Said they're really easy reads. They're breezy, and they're really good history. Like, they're not like just, they're really good history. And I want to read this to see, because I think someone should do that with the kind of books I like Frontiersmen, Explorers, American Stories. That isn't 350 pages of, dense history. I want a little breezier read to O'Reilly says it well in the introduction, make history accessible. You know what? That's what I want. I want all this to be a little more accessible. Maybe that's what I'm going to write. You listening to Fox Books? You listening to Fox Books?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. And then finally, vacation. So I'm going to talk about this later this week. I'm going to bring you up to date on what happened in Lahaina, Maui. I'm going to talk to you about the people. I'm going to talk to you about the funds that you helped raise here on the Will Cain Show. Over $2.6 million, over 200 grants of $12,000. Man, I gave hugs. I told men I loved them. Then they said, I've never told men I love them. I said, I don't really do that either, although I'm getting older and I'm getting a little more loose. I love you, man. And I spent my vacation with family. And in the end, I moved, I saw, I read. But I spent time with my wife. I spent time with my boys. I spent time with my mom. I walked every morning with my mom. I loved it. And truthfully, that is our biggest family activity. My wife and I don't go on enough dates. We don't take enough couples vacations. But you know what we do? We go for walks. We go for walks in the evening. We go for walks on vacation. And I did a lot of walks with my sons, with my wife, with my mom. I swam. I hung out with my brothers, my sister. I was with family. And it was not only a new studio when I come home, but hopefully, for a little while at least, a renewed Will. Black jobs, Joe Biden on Mount Rushmore, and more coming up with the one and only Tyrus on the Will Cain Show.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
Hey there, it's me, Kennedy. Make sure to check out my podcast, Kennedy Saves the World. It is 5 days a week. Every week, we check in with Jimmy Fallon, bring in authors for the book club, and even treat some of your favorite Fox personalities to a very special happy hour. Download and listen at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.
Kennedy Saves the World. America's listening to Fox News. Did you hear the news? Now you can. With instant updates from Fox News for Amazon Alexa. Breaking stories and top headlines, the economy, and so much more. Brought to you by Fox News, America's #1 cable news network. Plus, setup couldn't be easier because everything's ready to go in the app. Just say,
Alexa, play news from Fox.
In Fox News.
It's the latest when you need it, on demand, from Fox News and Amazon Alexa. The world of business moves fast. Stay on top of it with the Fox Business Rundown. Every Monday and Friday, Fox Business reporters, anchors, and hosts will bring you beneath the stock market speculation and boardroom drama to tell you about the biggest business stories of today. Whether you're on Main Street or Wall Street, Fox Business is invested in you. Listen to the Fox Business Rundown every Monday and Friday at foxbusinesspodcasts.com, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you download your favorite podcasts.
How come it's cool to talk about black unemployment, but it's totally racist for Donald Trump to mention black jobs? And get out the dynamite. Put Joe Biden on Mount Rushmore. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, on terrestrial radio coast to coast, but always on demand by hitting subscribe at Apple or Spotify or over on YouTube. And you can hang out with the Will Cain Show live every day at 12 o'clock Eastern time. He is the host of, get ready, take a deep breath. I'm going to read all of his properties.
Don't bother.
Maintaining with Tyrus on Outkick, Tyrus and the Wise Men Fox News podcast, every night on Gutfeld, and the author of the New York Times bestseller, Nuff Said. It is Tyrus. What's up, man?
What's up, man? How are you? How was your vacation?
It was good. Look at this.
You seem different.
Well, I'm about as dark as you.
Yeah, you are. You give me a run for my money. Luckily, mine's all year, so I'll be winning in December.
If I seem different, it's all now. I am
racist stuff.
Now I can claim multiracialism like Kamala Harris.
Yeah, why not? Jesse Walker's 0.01% black, so why not, Will?
By the way, I'm not into the multiracial conversation with Kamala Harris. Where are you on this? Like, okay, yeah, she's Indian, she's black. Why do we have to parse this out?
Kamala Harris is a beautiful black woman of Indian descent, Jamaican descent. She's probably got some other stuff sprinkled in there, but that has nothing to do with the content of her character. So I can go on the record and say that she is a beautiful black woman, and anyone else who has issues with that, why don't you go look in the mirror? But if you want to dumb down this election to that, then Kamala wins in a landslide. So if we spend the next 90 days up until November talking about whether she's black or not, she wins. The Democrats win. It's a stupid concept. It's never been an issue before. They are creating their own drama. So what this is like you leaving, you said some really nice things, and I'm with you on that boat too about doing more dates with the wife and stuff, and I think that's really admirable. You go on your walks and so there's little things that matter, especially in the line of work that we're in. You have to make time, but in the sense of it is when we get into you have that crazy ex who never let go, who will create drama for you to respond. Like, we'll send you a text message and say, oh my God, someone's beating on my door. If you were a real man, you'd come save me, right? And you go running over there and there's nothing there. There's just nothing there, but your evening's gone. And that's what they're doing with us right now, the Democratic Party. They're creating fake dramas and fake controversies. The question of she's not a journalist. The question of the agent of the Democratic Party was basically to get him to say something that they could say was racist. And again, what President Trump did was just basically said he didn't know. And but again, you just have to be a little. You got to be able to call balls and strikes. And when that originally started, President Trump was winning the moment. I thought he came in right, and then he walked right into the trap to which we're all talking about. And we should be talking about the stock market. We should be talking about the more information we're getting, attempted assassination attempt. We should be talking about
but it's catnip, Tyrus. The problem is, and I don't know if you listened to the opening monologue, it's catnip. Here's why. Because it's grounded in an element of truth. I totally agree with everything that you said. I totally agree. If you want to lose the election, focus on, is she black, is she Indian? And the catnip is, it's grounded in, is she a phony? That's the real issue everybody's alluding to, right? She's code switching depending upon what audience she's talking to, or even more importantly, her policies. She adapts them to whoever she's speaking to or whether election she's trying to win. And so, Trump or whoever else that is falling into this catnip is using her playing into her racial identity as a proxy for she's a phony. And I just think, like so many things in life, I think it was Reagan's communications director that said, I think he said something like it's 70% how you look, 20% how you sound, and 10% what you actually say. How people sound in having this conversation is really unattractive. It's a turnoff to listen to people talk about, is she black or Indian? But you should have the conversation, is she a phony?
Well, you should have a question, is her content of character? That's what it should be. It should be, we do not question. Listen, I'm sure when the party of the DEI, I'm sure they vetted her on her racial background thoroughly because she was put in that position. Why? Because she was a woman of color. That was what President Biden announced to us, that his VP pick would not be the greatest law professor, would not be a world-renowned traveler or ambassador or a constitutionalist. It was a woman of color, and she fit the bill. The problem is, it's after you say woman of color is where the issues come up. We've seen whenever there's not a teleprompter, she's horrible. And, again, the whole campaign can go back to, and it's just like it's, what's funny is politics has become no different than what ESPN was 20 years ago, when Monday morning would have Monday morning quarterback and everyone tell everyone how Joe Montana should have thrown better for the Chiefs, right? So now we're telling campaigns how to run their campaign. But if they, like I said, her problem is once that's gone, there's not much there, because according to President Biden, again, it's his campaign, you just run off his stuff. He said that she was ready day one to take over the job. Use that against them, because if she was, she would be. He's got dementia. For 3 years, they had reason to fool us. At any time, they could have said, he could have came out and stepped down, and this is how we'll merge all this together. He was going to step down, and she was next, because he can't go anymore. His body was failing him, not his heart. His heart was with it. And there would have been this huge ceremony and coronation, so to speak. And that's not what happened. They knew she wasn't able to do the job. Otherwise, she would have been. Otherwise, she'd be doing it right now, because we saw what all of it, put it all together. If he was that would have got him on the Mount Rushmore, which is hilarious to me, because according to the left, it's a wall of oppressors that needs to be blown up and taken down. So now, I guess they're going to blow it up, put Biden back by himself, because everybody else is a slave owner and a horrible person. Right. Should never be recognized for anything they've done. So what Mount Rushmore are you talking about? Not that racist one that you were telling us that should go away. This is what that's the Kamala Harris ticket in a nutshell. They just say stuff to get us to come over. And then we come over and it's the same blank show that it always is. So, like I said, this is
like
President
you right
Trump's
now.
going to have to work really hard to lose this election.
You just mispronounced her name, and now you're racist.
Yeah, I'm
it's
a grown man.
Kamala.
I'm not.
Have you?
I don't know her personally, so I don't. I say my own daughter's name wrong sometimes. She likes a French accent. She likes to be called, now that she's an equestrian champion, Georgie, which I still say Georgie. So I get it all the time, and I'm not going to apologize for mispronouncing. It's a human thing. All right. You know what?
We got to get the rules right. Everybody listening, if you're listening, Kamala, enlightened. Kamala, racist. So get it right. Kamala, safe. Kamala, dangerous. And by the way, Tyrus, on this note, this is, you talk about bringing them over to the side and playing the game. The other one is like this black jobs thing. Like Trump says, illegal immigrants are going to intrude upon or hurt black jobs. And then Simone Biles, greatest female Olympian gymnast of all time, tweets out, "I love my black job." And they're acting like it's a big racist thing. Forgive me, don't we talk about black unemployment? Don't we talk about the black vote? And now you can't say black job?
You have to go back to the Crazy X, and so you won't get in trouble. The Crazy X can be a man too. Okay, you can have a Crazy X man saying someone broke in his house and he's beat up and you need to come over. So we've covered all bases. But again, it goes back to the black thing. It's always convenient that how it's used. Now, when he's talking about black jobs, he's talking about the communities, because where are the communities going? I don't like grouping. Never been a big group guy. I think grouping people based on their pigments in their skin is ignorant, but it's a good way to get us all focused on the wrong stuff. So when you hear the black vote, when you hear the black jobs and all that, when it's said, when they like it, when it's convenient to them, it's fine. But to say that the 10 million or 20, we have no clue. The millions and millions of undocumented illegal aliens who have come into this country, what neighborhoods do they usually end up at? They don't end up in the affluent parts of the United States. They don't end up in the gated communities. They don't end up with, the 4-story homes. And if you have a golf course in your backyard, you're not waking up in the morning seeing illegals hanging up their laundry and setting up tents. No, that would not be tolerated. Where are they going? Unfortunately, they're going to these poor neighborhoods and these poor communities, and they're taking the resources of communities. But if we're just going to be real, this is what happens when you rely on the Democratic Party in the first place. When you don't focus on individual achievement, And again, there's people who need services that can't. It's not their fault, whether it be an issue, a genetic issue, or an injury, or whatever. We understand that. But the point is that when you're at the bottom of the group, when these groups come in, you are affected the most. And for him to say black,
Absolutely.
he could have said Mexican jobs. He could have said poor white trash jobs. He could have said white jobs.
Yep.
Across the board. But everyone's affected. And the group that he was speaking to, that he came to see that day, that I would like to say that Kamala did not attend, that Biden did not attend, President Trump trained, and he came there to talk about what? Black voters and black jobs. So in the context of the interview, he was fine. But again, context is something you use if you're an adult. You know, like you opening up and telling people that you love them now. You're becoming an adult. You're not all tightened up. You don't have to convince everybody that you're Will Cain, a stud. You're a man of wisdom now. He goes on quiet walks with his wife and reflects and wants to have more action-packed history books. I would suggest Kilmeade's book, Roosevelt and Booker T. Washington. It's a quick read. You'll like it. Maybe you and I get together and collab on a Lewis Clark. Will and Tyrus break down Lewis and Clark.
I like that.
History's fun, bro. But again, in the context of our makes sense. So again, this is what we're dealing with.
I read some Kilmeade. I read Sam Houston, The Alamo Avengers. Yeah. By the way, do you tell men that you love them, or is that are you wise? Is that wise, or is that off the?
No, you know what? When again, wisdom builds, in time. But when you play, when you're buddies, when you retire and stuff. When I retired from wrestling, there was all I love yous and stuff like that. I think
you know what, Tyrus? It's how dare you or I compare ourselves to anybody who's been to battle. But I do think when it slipped out of me. It wasn't calculated. Big Hawaiian guy, hanging out with him. And he was touring me through Lahaina, which is all burned down, showing me his lot. I've talked to him probably every other month for the past year. And at the end, it just kind of gave him a bro hug and it was like, love you, man. And it just came out, right? But I do think something's tied to what you just said. It's like we've been through something together. Like I didn't lose my home, so I'm not putting myself on that level. But we worked on something hard together. We went through a process together. Whether or not it's a fight, a war, a sporting event. That's when I don't know, man. That's when dudes feel it. And if it comes out, so what?
Brotherhood. Men build brotherhoods. And when you go through stuff together, when you walk through fire together, when you go through a hard time, and there's levels to the game, obviously, but still, there's still a camaraderie there. And to get to that point where one man says, hey, man, I love you, man. Like every time probably I talk to what I would consider my core, whether it's my bodyguard group or my football group or my wrestling group of guys. I mean, I've been really blessed to where I always, we don't talk every day. We won't even talk every month. There might be, in some cases, a year or a couple of years go by. But as soon as you see each other, you are reminded of the battle, the training, the days where you both were told you were both piles of nothing, when you have a trainer telling you you're a waste of space and, those long days or 2 days or those long nights, or in your case, where you're dealing through a really, really emotionally tough situation and bonds are filled and those bonds are lifelong. So when a bro says it's different, like, and again, I'm sexist, misogynistic, toxic male to begin with. So like women will say it like as a term of endearment. Oh, I love you, girl. But they don't really like each other. Men don't waste that. Right. Men don't waste that. Like, oh, I love you, girl. And then be like, I can't believe she wore that dress. Look at her butt. Men don't do that. You don't say love you, bro, and he walks away and be like, man, that's a punk. We don't do that. When a man says, no, I love you, and a woman will tell you too, when a man looks you in the eye and says, love you. And again, there's levels to the game. You love your children, you love your wife, and then you got a love for your brother, which means that if he called you at 2 a.m. and said, I need you, man, you'll be like, you know what? Who's driving? To quote that great phrase from the movie The Town. But it's a true thing, and it's a good thing. It shows your growth.
I love that line. I love that moment. Yeah, you got your boys. It's like, hey, I did something terrible. All right, how do we get you to Mexico? Yeah, and that's those are when you get there. And you know what? The way you described that, also, just as a quick serious aside, that gives validation to what the military was supposed to be and used to be. You're supposed to, like the whole point of basic and all that, break a man down. Because if you can break brothers down together to their base, then build them, you got something cohesive. You can call it love, you can call it whatever it is, but man, that's the whole point. Otherwise, men, we do hold each other at arm's length. We build these walls. And we're probably not wrong to, because we're the survivalist. We're the protector of the tribe. So everything's a threat until you're broken down to build back up together.
Right, because also the same thing, the most dangerous person around you is the person around you. You know, so there is a level to that, to where there is a reason why you keep people's arm's length, especially in this day and age. It is more, you know, honor and integrity are rarities now. You know, I probably wouldn't even be on TV because I'm famous for what? Common sense. 20 years ago, common sense was everywhere. So, you know, they'd be like, what else you got? You know what I'm saying? Like, so it does change. But I mean, it's just an evolution of everything. And when we do say those words and we do those things, there is a point to it. And it's one of those things that is unbreakable. You know, when we watch movies, one of the best movies is, it's always like, the reason why Predator was like Predator, right? It wasn't even about the alien. It was about the brotherhood that was betrayed by Carl Winslow, Carl Weathers, rest of his soul. So, I mean, that was the whole thing. Like, he was like, man, I can't believe you. And everyone was like, man, how could he sell his boys out, man? You know, because that to the core of us, like, I could never sell out my O-line guys. Like, we played as one.
I got to go back.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's been way too long.
There's a bond there. I can get a call right now from my starting center, Corey Williams, or Martin. Well, Martin Simmons is in heaven, so he can't go. He can't call me the other center. But if he would call me tomorrow, it would have been like, and we'd talk like we were at practice together. They can't take that stuff away from it, because when you earn it, and that's what really election's really about. It's about the workers versus the takers. And when you work for something and you earn it and you merit, it's meritocracy. That's what we represent. And we don't, and they're DEI. But when you earn something together, when you fight, that's where the memories come from. That's why you see when you see the World War II vets come together, they're not asking about what you have for breakfast. They just pick off where they left off the last time they saw each other.
Right.
It's a beautiful thing. Now, would I compare my football camaraderie and wrestling to? Absolutely not. Those men faced death together, but you still face trouble. You still face success and failure, and you know, and eventually it ends. And all you have is the memories that you forged together.
So I like you describing yourself as common sense. You know what's funny about you, Tyrus? I never even think about whether or not you're right, you're left. I saw a clip of you the other day talking to Kat Timpf about her being libertarian. So maybe I don't know if you're libertarian. I don't care. You don't have to answer that part of the conversation. What I'm confident in is that you are someone who strives to be self-aware. And that's something I'd pride myself in as well. Like, I don't want to be reflexively ideological. I want to check myself. So earlier in the conversation, I'm going to use you to be the mirror here. I said, you know, Nancy Pelosi described Joe Biden as one of the most consequential presidents. And if you listen to the last, 2 weeks, that's a verbal virus. They're all repeating consequential. Right. Then they moved to talking about J.D. Vance is weird, right? You know, you remember pandemic of the unvaccinated. It's like this word takes off and it catches like wildfire, and the entirety of the left repeats it. And that's well established. What I asked is, does that exist on the right? They do, in the pursuit of self-awareness, let's be real. Are we doing that? Do we have that? And I'm trying to just think, like, I mean, we certainly have things that we say, freedom,
right.
But I don't know.
That's a good question. The right does things differently, but they kind of took the right playbook away from the right, because the right used to be all about, we got to be prepared for day one in case a terrorist comes here. And for a long time, that's all we heard about, terrorists. And if you're living in Kansas, you're not really too worried about Al-Qaeda, but they were convincing people in Kansas they need to be worried about Al-Qaeda. I think the biggest thing, we've been on the defense for so long with just, the Democrats have done a very good job of keeping the Republicans always on the defense. They're always trying to explain themselves that they're not racist, that they're not an Uncle Tom, that they're not a toxic male, that they're not a Me Too monster. The Republicans have really spent a lot of time getting caught up in the net of words that don't mean what they're supposed to mean. So we don't see it as much. The extreme, since we're all racist, there's no reason for the extreme right to even say a word at this point, because, the Democrats are doing their job for them. So right now we're just not seeing it to the point. But again, in defense of the Democrats, I think you're right. I think the Democratic Party is also two parties in one. You have socialist Marxists disguised as progressive taking over the party without the numbers. They're basically they're doing the puppeteer thing where they're leading from underneath, and they had the perfect candidate, a man with salinity, dementia, you name it. He's got it. So they were able to run programs, run attacks nonstop, and he's consequential in the fact that he was inconsequential. I think he's the most inconsequential president of all time, because if you and I sat him down without his handlers and went through his executive orders with him or went through his concepts, it would be a very depressing, sad thing. I don't enjoy seeing him speak. When the last time I saw him on TV, it's cringeworthy. And you think about, and there are people who blame him for a lot of things over his 50 years, but it's an abuse that it's just shocking to me to see him not just uncomfortably trying to walk towards the men and women that were coming home during the prisoner exchange. I mean, and then you see the vice president and the president basically competing to be the first one. I was like, can they hug their families first? You know, and it was just a weird thing that you see him walk up the plane, and you see all this other stuff, and you're like, yeah, that's the face of a guy on Mount Rushmore. He had so unaware
Mount Rushmore.
That was allowed.
Nancy Pelosi
to allow unelected officials to run this country. Yeah,
it's almost worth it to see his mouth agape with big confused eyes up on Mount Rushmore. You know, at least for him, most of his confusion and incapability is driven by his age. Not all, most. When it comes to Kamala Harris, it's driven by equally incapable of speaking. It's driven by incompetence. I'm gonna leave it there, though.
It's arrogant. If this beautiful black woman doesn't like to read, talk to a lot of
that's a direct correlation.
Yep.
Arrogance.
Her skin's irrelevant.
Arrogance and incompetence are partners.
Yes. So apparently staffers give her information, and she screams at them when she doesn't want to read it, and then goes into a meeting, looks dumb, comes back and yells at them even more. And that's that's not me. That's not hyperbole. These are statements from her former staff. So again, beautiful black woman all day, every day. Horrible leadership skills, horrible track record. And if there's no teleprompter, I got to break out bongos. Again, this is the same person that we've been dealing with for 3.5 years. We know what it is.
Maintaining with Tyrus, that's on Outkick. Tyrus and the Wise Men, that's on Fox News Podcasts. Gutfeld, of course, every night on the Fox News channel. And Nuff Said, that's on bookshelves. It's a New York Times bestseller. He's Tyrus. I always love having him here on the Will Cain Show.
Always
you, brother.
A pleasure, man. Thank you, man. Until next time.
Take care.
Again, enjoy those walks. I'm not saying nothing about the series this weekend.
Yeah, the Sox. He's got the Celtics who took down the Mavericks, and he's got the Red Sox who just took down the Rangers.
You guys got a great picture.
It didn't go unnoticed.
Yeah, hey.
Your attire did not go unnoticed. All right. See you, Tyrus. It didn't go unnoticed here on this end of the Will Cain Show. It didn't go uncalculated when he appeared on the Will Cain Show. You know, I do strive for self-awareness. I do want to ask, does the right do this? I'm sure to some extent we can come up with examples of where the answer is yes. But I will say that I think over the past decade in particular, it is the left that has indulged two particular things. One, the fluidity, the malleability of words, make them mean what you want them to mean. And secondarily, indulged in absolute fear peddling when it comes to COVID, when it comes to unvaccinated, when it comes to surrounded by racists, when it comes to climate change. Pump the public full of fear and then supply them with malleable words to repeat your way to power. That is, if not monopolized, dominated by the left. All right, that's going to do it for me today here on The Will Cain Show. We're back, and I'll be back tomorrow, 12 o'clock Eastern time on YouTube and Facebook. I'll see you every night, every afternoon on radio. And if you just are, in my famous words, walking on the treadmill or driving around your car, hit subscribe on Apple or Spotify, and always hang out with The Will Cain Show. I'll see you next time.